Hello, everyone. My name is Samuel Teyssier. I'm the head of organizational outreach at Kent State Independent Films. And today, on our installment of Cinematic Strategies, we are joined today by legendary voiceover actor Bob Bergen. He is known for voicing characters from Luke Skywalker to Porky Pig. Here he is. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Bergen.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, we're very glad for you to join us. And to start us off today, I have a pretty easy question for you.
Okay.
What was the last film you've seen?
The last film. Well, I'm a member of the Motion Picture Academy, so I've seen a lot of movies lately. Um, The Father.
The Father with Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, it's pretty brilliant. It's interesting because there have been many films on the topic of dementia and Alzheimer's, but they've never done anything from the perspective of the patient, and it's interesting because as a voting member, they also sent the screenplay, which I read, and it's. Oh my gosh, you read that screenplay and then you see the film and you're like, well, there's an Oscar worthy nomination. Yeah, it was brilliant.
It's awesome that you take your job as a member that seriously, because as an outsider, I always think they might vote for something that's the most popular or something, but it's nice that
Yeah,
you read the script.
I'm a member of the Motion Picture Academy. I'm a member of the Television Academy. I take the responsibility of voting for excellence very, very seriously. I can't speak for every member, but I wouldn't have participated or joined if I wasn't going to. The only thing I missed this year and last year is going in person to screenings. I'm watching everything on television. I have a nice big screen TV, but films should be seen in cinema. They should be seen where they're intended. So I miss that.
And it's great that you appreciate that movie going experience, so that hopefully comes back soon due to everything we've been dealing with.
Yeah.
What is one of the voice actors that really inspired you, Mr. Bergen? Ever since you were a child, you were watching these cartoons, and who was this one person that really stuck out to you that made you want to do what you do today?
Certainly Mel Blanc. I remember when I was a kid, really young. I mean, could barely read if I could read at all. And I remember saying to my parents, I think there's one guy doing all these voices. And my mom says, well, there is, but how can you tell? And I said, I can just hear some common denominator. I didn't say common denominator because I was probably 4, but I heard something similar in all the characters. And I was intrigued by that. I didn't know the names of the players when I was a kid, but I became a fan of June Foray. I became a fan of Jack Mercer, who was the voice of Popeye. I became a fan of Don Messick. I became a fan of Frank Welker. And I learned, early on that, this was before the internet. These were special people who had this wonderful job and this wonderful career that I wanted to do.
Is there anyone today that you really see and admire that is somewhat of a new player to the voice acting field?
Oh, yeah. I teach animation voiceover, and every once in a while I'll have that student on that first day, and I'm thinking, there's going to come a time when we're going to be sharing a mic together. Certainly not, I wouldn't call these people necessarily new. J.P. Karliak was a student of mine 105 years ago, and he works all the time. Max Middleman, Misty Lee. My contemporaries today, we're a mutual admiration society. With COVID, we're all recording from our home studios, but I missed the ensemble recording where I could watch D. Bradley Baker do his magic, or Jess Harnell, or Jeff Bergman, or Candy Milo. I mean, we're talking about people, and we literally, after a great take, after a fellow actor does a great take, we are like, that was so good. Or I'll finish a take and I'll see a text from Jeff Bergman. Wow. We really do admire. There's no jealousy. We really do admire each other.
That's awesome. That's that nurturing as a whole kind of group you guys are as voice actors.
Yeah.
Since you grew up in Cincinnati and moved to LA at a young age, I think around 14,
Yeah. Well, I didn't do it myself. My dad took
Oh
the job.
yeah,
I didn't say, bye, folks. I'm taking the station wagon.
yeah. I didn't really have a choice here.
Yeah.
But did you ever consider another career? Because you said around the age of 4, you recognized only one person did this whole kind of Looney Tunes. They voiced mostly all of them.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider another career after kind of growing a passion at that young of an age?
No, and it's not something I recommend to people. I was very focused. I was very driven. Literally, the day we moved to LA, I just picked up the phone and started calling whatever in the phone book. Before we even moved here, my dad was he was working in LA for about 6 months while we were finishing up school, and I would say to him, "Do me a favor, go to the Yellow Pages and just rip out animation and cartoon and just bring it to me." And he did. Uh, and I would just get the phone numbers for Hanna-Barbera and for Filmation and Deke and Disney. And so I was kind of preparing for when I got to LA to use the telephone as my research. But no, I didn't go to college. I didn't have anything to fall back on. I was just very, very driven. And I got lucky. But was there a time I didn't want to do it? It's a really interesting question, Sam, twice.
Twice.
Well, more than twice, but two things that pop into my mind.
Okay.
When I got down to the wire for the first round of auditions for Looney Tunes in about 89, 90, I said to my agent, if I don't book this, I think I'm going to quit voiceover. And at the time, I was doing very well. And she said, why? I said, because this is the only reason I got into this business to begin with. And she said, well, don't be hasty, because I was already working on a whole bunch of shows and she got 10% commission. So she didn't want me to quit. And then, and I didn't quit. But every once in a while, usually around sometime in June, maybe once every 5 years or so, I get this like, I don't like this anymore. And the first time it happened, I had no idea what was going in my head. The second time it happened, I was like, well, I got to figure this out. I'm doing really well. And usually it happens when I'm having an amazing year. And then I realized, oh my gosh, the work is not fulfilling me. I'm making a great living, but I'm not doing work that fulfills me as an actor. That would fulfill me more in a class than that I'm getting paid for. Which and the last time that happened to me was, oh gosh, about a little over 20 years ago, when I decided to produce and launch a one-man show, which gave me the creative outlet to do something I really wanted to do. And the moral of that story is, for any actor that's watching this, you can't do this for the money, because that will not satisfy you. You've got to do this because you love to act. And I just found that, okay, not every year is going to have fulfilling writing, great production, terrific producers. But when it does, I don't take it for granted.
Especially for someone who's been doing it as long as you have, I can see those kind of valleys that come sometimes.
Sure.
But,
yeah. I mean, right now, and I can't talk about it, I don't think. There's a lot I can't talk about. And I apologize for that, but that's the nature of the business today. But I'm doing a project right now that is it's not Looney Tunes, it has nothing to do with Warner Brothers, but it's one of the coolest I've ever done. And it's a franchise I've worked for before, but it's such good writing. I mean, an actor's only as good as the words they're allowed to say, and the writing is just so good. I can't wait for this to come out.
Awesome. Yeah. And I have no idea what you're talking about, but especially with the streaming services that are coming, we see a lot of more creative stuff coming with animation right now.
I can't say what it is. I can't say what it is, but I think I can hint something like "May the 4th be with you."
That can mean anything. I don't know what.
Never know.
I don't know what.
I know, right? There you go.
Yeah, but yeah, that definitely happens. And I'm excited for whatever you're talking about, because I may be a fan.
There you
go. So, as we're talking about like your early career, what was your first paying job as a voice actor, Mr. Bergen?
Call me Bob.
Call me Bob.
I'll call you Sam. You call me Bob. My first paying gig was a cartoon called Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends in the early 80s.
Awesome. Okay. And it was just like extra, like, I don't know, just background characters that you were doing?
Oh, I was a guest star.
You're a guest star. Awesome.
Yeah. I auditioned for it. It got me my SAG card. I had already signed with my first agent, so I got the job through a friend of the family who happened to be in casting, and then I worked for 5 years as a tour guide at Universal Studios to pay the bills. And, one job does not a career launch, but it was a really cool first job.
Nice starting point.
Yeah,
And how old were you when you got that first role?
18. It was a week out of high
18.
school. 18, and
Wow,
I'm really excited
awesome.
because it was an NBC Spider-Man cartoon where Stan Lee was the narrator, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go get to meet Stan Lee. He did his
No,
stuff separately, but my first job, I was working alongside Frank Welker, and when I was 5 years old, Scooby Doo debuted, and he was the voice of Fred, and I was 18, and I'm like, I'm a geeky fanboy. And I'm still a geeky fanboy. I work with people all the time, and I'm like, I'm a geeky fanboy to be with you. This is so cool. I do not take it for granted. Every time I drive on to Disney, I'm like, look what I get to do. And I'm doing this almost 40 years. So I still pinch myself every day that I get to do what I love to do.
and it's great to hear that even people in your position feel that still after you've been doing it for nearly 40 years at this point.
Yeah, I know. I'm an old man.
And you're also credited with a lot of your early works with vocal effects,
Yeah.
with some really notable films like Born on the Fourth of July, Halloween 4, and Gremlins. What does that work entail from someone on the outside like me? I'm not really sure what that is.
Well, it just depends on what the film is. For Halloween 4, when Mike Myers was looking through the mask, you were hearing me go, I was his breathing.
Wow.
Yes, they hire an actor for that. Um, uh, yeah, when you're hired to do vocal effects for film, sometimes you'll see additional voices. Oftentimes, it's just background ambiance. A lot of times, it's very specific character story driven stuff. I'll give you an example. I got a call, and hopefully she'll see this. I was busy in the kitchen cooking, and I couldn't get to my phone. And my friend Annie Lockhart left me a message. Annie was on Battlestar Galactica, the original wonderful actress. Her mom, June Lockhart, her grandfather, Gene Lockhart. Google these names, people. You're going to go, oh, I know who they are. Annie just left me a message, random today, that she yesterday was watching Total Recall and remembers the sessions when we did Total Recall, where we did screaming and people dying. But the thing that I did that was kind of memorable, there was a scene where Arnold Schwarzenegger is supposed to be disguised like a chubby woman, and he goes to the customs counter, and the customs guy is stamping his passport, and he says, do you have anything to declare? And her face splits open, and Arnold comes out. Okay, the guy who played the customs guy, he was from Austria, and he sounded just like Arnold. And in the real film, he said, "Do you have any fruits or vegetables to declare?" And they thought, well, that's going to give the joke away. So it's my voice coming out of his face. When you
Wow.
see it, it's kind of jarring. I mean, if you know me, I remember seeing the film with my friend Andrea, and when he started talking, we both just started to giggle loudly, and it wasn't a funny moment in the movie. And people are looking at us like, "What are we missing? What's so funny?" And I can't explain it. But so that's to say, what are the vocal effects? I was Phoebe Cates's hiccups in a movie called A Date with an Angel. Um, it just depends on what they need from me. Sometimes you audition, and more often than not, you just kind of like get a call saying you're versatile. We've worked with you before. Can you be at the studio next Wednesday? So
Yeah, that's awesome that you have these really small roles early in your career that no one really notice unless it's like you or your close friends, because you can kind of look back at that and have those cool laughs like you did. And like the breathing, you would think that they probably just get the actual actor to do, but like why isn't that?
I don't
Just
know.
because?
I
Okay.
don't know. I can tell you that there is an actor named Eric Stoltz, a really good actor, who. So when you shoot a film, oftentimes they need to go into the studio and sweeten the soundtrack because it didn't work. It could be that a plane went by and it was shot outdoors, or they changed the dialogue, or there was just some kind of a glitch in the sound. And Eric Stoltz did not like going back to sweeten his own work. Uh, from what I was told, and Eric, if this isn't true, then you must clarify, but this is what I was told, that he didn't feel that he could recreate that moment again as an actor. He's moved on. So I did a film where little lines here and there, not the whole film, where I had to sweeten his dialogue. And then the producer of his next film found out that I had done that and hired me for his next film. And I just started doing film after film after film for several years. And then he started doing more directing than acting. But I did very well for that. I did a movie called The Basketball Diaries, where, for the TV version or the airplane version, before they had little, video screens where you could watch everything, they would take out the bad language. So I revoiced Leonardo DiCaprio when he was stoned, and another guy revoiced him when he was sober, because I could play him really well vocally stoned, and the other guy played him really well sober. And Leo couldn't do either because his voice had changed too much since he shot the film. So again, what is it? It's whatever they need you for that you can do.
It's so odd. Yeah, because I saw those revoicing credits as well.
Yeah.
And it's just so weird seeing something like that. Like, yeah, I was gonna say Key to Tulsa and 2 Days in the Valley.
Yeah,
those are the ones you did for Eric Stoltz.
Wow. Okay. And the other thing you have to understand is, if somebody were to call me up and say, "Can you revoice so and so?" My knee jerk would be to say, "No, I can't." And the reason is because I don't do really good impressions. But then I would see that little moment in the film that they needed me. For instance, I did Owen Wilson in something, and I'm like, I can't do Owen Wilson. But then I watched a few scenes in a film, and I realized, well, first he talks with his lips 2 feet in front of his face, and he always sounds sort of stoned, and everything's sort of a big run-on sentence. So depending on what he's doing in the movie, I could probably just get a couple of lines in and out. I did Christian Slater, I think, in one of the Robin Hood movies. Yeah, I did Quentin Tarantino in From Dusk to Dawn. I mean, it's just, it's random stuff. It's random stuff. And, sometimes you audition for it, sometimes you don't. But it's fun. It's really fun stuff. And they don't give you screen credit for actually doing that voice, because they don't want to insult the actor if you're really replacing their lines. So you'll see vocal effects or additional voices.
Okay. And since you've not been credited with one of these roles recently, is that mostly seen as like a starting job for voice actors? Or is that my bad
Oh, no, that's your bad.
In my research?
Okay.
Bad. You still do it very often?
People who've been nominated for Emmys will do this work because it's a day player contract and you get residuals. So no, it's not like, oh, I'm settling for this. No. And it's hard to break into. It's really difficult to break into. It's hard to break into everything, but this in particular is very hard to break into, and the money's great.
That's really cool because it's very, usually 1 to 2 day work, very small time commitment.
It depends sometimes, and it's 8-hour days, and it's tiring. But depending on what you're doing, it could be really, really neat, and you're working with really. I mean, I did minor work on a little character in a movie called The Emperor's New Groove. Played a little squirrel.
Bucky.
Yeah, and that turned into a sequel and 3 years on a series. So you never know when that tiny little comic relief, whatever, might lead to something more. In fact, he's right there. Where is he? There he is. He's right there. There's Bucky.
And for that role specifically, could they not recast you? Because
yeah, they can recast.
They could have? Okay. Because I would have thought in the TV series, they would have got someone probably cheaper to do the TV series. But
not necessarily.
Okay.
No, I gotta make sure I'm not necessarily. It's voiceover for the most part is a scale business. You work for minimum. But I've had to re-audition for some of the characters I played over and over again. For Bucky, I didn't have to re-audition for him. I did the film one day, and then they brought me back. They liked what I did. It tested really well. So they wrote more gags for him, I think 2 or 3 more times. And then, they just continued with me and the character. So no, I'm thrilled they didn't recast that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure everyone else is who's a fan of all the stuff he's done, and especially like you said, you have to re-audition. I'm sure that's for your main roles, like Porky Pig, right? You have to,
Oh yeah, or for anything. I don't own
anything. Oh, okay.
So just because you've done something doesn't mean they're not going to audition over and over and over again. So it's it's the nature of the business. If I owned the characters, then I would just cast myself. I don't own anything, so yeah, I'm an actor for hire.
Did you ever feel some weight on your shoulders, especially since you're portraying roles often like Tweety Bird, Porky Pig, and Luke Skywalker, since the audience has a reference point to the uh, the original actors?
Mm-hmm. Well, yes and no. For the Looney Tunes, I have never tried to emulate Mel Blanc. I can't.
Okay.
He was a genius. He was a brilliant actor, and he was irreplaceable. What I try to do is to uphold the integrity of the character. Mimicking a classic character is actually kind of easy. People can say, the catchphrases. People come up to me all the time. Where's the kaboom? Yeah, I know. Where the earth's having. But doing new dialogue, putting these characters in contemporary situations that they've never been in. When we did the first Space Jam, one of the callbacks, they had us do Shakespeare. And it was down to the wire. It was like 4 or 5 of us in the lobby. And I think their thinking was anybody could say, "What's up, Doc? I taught, putty tat." That's all, folks. But if you can play Hamlet as a Looney Tune, you probably know the character pretty well. And I was watching them pass out the scripts. It was a cold read. And they handed me Shakespeare. I'm looking at the other guys and I'm seeing them like freak out. I'm like, "Oh, this is good. I got this." Because I knew the character really, really well. But I never think Mel Blanc when I do it. I just think the character. In fact, every time I work on a Looney Tunes project, I try to get something from the director. What are you looking for? Because the character evolved over the years. Are you looking for like a Chuck Jones, Duck Dodgers sort of cadet Porky? Robin Hood Daffy, Drip Along Daffy, Porky Pig? Or are you looking for more of a wacky, zany Tex Avery, Bob Clampett? And that's great because right now we're doing these Looney Tunes cartoons for HBO Max, which are extremely reminiscent of the 1940s, more wackier Looney Tunes. Because I've done Duck Dodgers, I've done the more sophisticated Chuck Jones cerebral type of Looney Tunes. For Luke Skywalker, I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again here. When I got the audition, I turned it down because I said to my agent, "I can't do Mark Hamill." And my agent said, "Okay." So she calls the casting directors, and then she calls me back and she says, "They still want to see you." And I said, "All right." So I go to the audition and I said to the producer, "I can't do Mark Hamill." And they said, "Don't do Mark Hamill, do Luke Skywalker." I went, "Oh, okay. Well, let's talk through this." And I'd seen Star Wars. I was not a fanatic, but I'd seen it. And so they kind of coaxed me and coached me and handheld me on the different sides of Luke's personality, pre-Jedi, post-Jedi. Pre-Jedi, he was kind of whiny, and he was a whiny kid, and then he gets the Force a little bit, and he raises spaceships out of the muck, and he gets a little bit more centered. The Force is weird. So they just heard something in my voice, in my timbre, that I sounded like the character, but I didn't take the job until I asked my agent to call Mark's agent to see if he wanted it. Because there's a personal policy of mine. I won't take a job away from somebody. I didn't know if he was negotiating for more money. I didn't know if he knew about it. And the fact of the matter was, it was at a time in his career where he just didn't want to do it. So I was happy to do it.
Yeah, that's really interesting too, since he's really well known for his voice acting work. To me,
well, this was actually, I think this was even before the Joker.
Wow.
So this was
early.
I think it was at a time, and I'm just speculating, but I'm pretty sure knowing when this was. This was at a time he wanted to distance from the franchise so he could do other things and be recognized for other things. It's lovely to be a part of something that's a part of pop culture, but sometimes it ties your hands. And of course, that changed because there was more property, and he did a great job. And as far as I'm concerned, he is this character. But it's a fun character to play. I will not deny that. It's a really fun character to play.
Yeah, and listening to I'm sure I've listened to your stuff, like stuff as Luke Skywalker in some video games that I played when I was a child, but even listening to your like little bloopers on your website of you as Luke Skywalker, it does remind me, if I close my eyes and look at Luke Skywalker, it makes sense. It fits.
Well, I'll tell you, the first game I ever did, there was a review in the LA Times, and one of the lines the reviewer says something like, it's a fun game. The fans are going to love it. They even got Mark Hamill to play Luke Skywalker. And I called my agent. I said, "Can you call the producer? Did he replace me?" And no, but I guess in the old days you had to play through the last level to see the end credits, and they didn't see the credits. They just assumed it was Mark. So I guess that was the best review I've ever had.
Yeah, it was exactly what they saw.
Yeah,
And that was very early, kind of connected to the films as well. So there wasn't that much distance for them
I
to
guess
kind of
not.
separate
I
themselves.
guess not.
Does it depend on the character on how much you improvise? Because I know for Porky, you improvise a lot with him, but for someone like Luke, do you mostly try to stick to what's on the page?
I don't improvise at all for that. I don't improvise at all for anything I've done for the Star Wars universe because I don't know the characters well enough to.
Okay.
But that said, if it's an original character, especially for an audition, what I teach my students is improvisation is wonderful as long as it doesn't sound like you're trying to improve on the writer's intent. So you don't want to completely change the dialogue, but you do want to add something of interest in your performance and your character that that solidifies it. That brings you to the script is a skeleton. Your job is to give it a body. For Porky, oftentimes the joke is in the script. The writers did it. More often than not, I will try one for myself as well, and it's up to them which take they print. I have no control over that.
How does that conversation go with the director? Like, do you just say, "I'd like a take for myself," or like, if you mind?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. Every time I work for a new Looney Tunes something, they type in my stutter. Now, I hate this because I can't find the actual script. I can't find the story amongst all the W's and P's and T's, dashes and whatnot. So when I did New Looney Tunes, which was a series I did a few years ago, Matt Craig, who was our writer-producer, who is a genius, he came up with a system for the script that I still use. I take it with me now to every Looney Tunes job. First of all, I don't say anything the first day. I don't want to tell, don't you know how I work? I mean, I'm not that kind of an actor. So Matt's, his text technique is to put an ellipses between the word and then the joke. So if the line was, "Daffy, have you seen my dog?" Instead of saying, "Daffy, have you seen my D dash D dash D dash dog?" It'll say, "Dog, ellipses, canine," which is my cue to know to stutter on dog and then say canine instead. So that's what they'll, if they're writing the joke in the script. "Daffy, have you seen my have you seen my canine?" So that's when they hand it to me. If it's just me, it is an ad lib. I don't plan anything. And if it's my own ad lib, I stutter as long as I think of a joke, or as long as it takes me to think of a spin. I don't do it on every line, but I do it as often as it feels organic.
Yeah, in my mind, when you stutter, like the dog to the canine, I always thought the canine was all you. But that's cool that
No, it is
they provide that.
I mean, we're on Looney Tunes cartoons, the HBO Max series we're doing, the short series of shorts. We got ingenious writers. I mean, it acts itself. It's so good. If I laugh out loud reading the script, it's a good script. The storyboards are brilliant. It is the closest thing we've ever done to the classic shorts. but I'm still going to try my own stuff every once in a while.
And these new, what's it called exactly? These new Looney Tunes?
Looney Tunes cartoons, HBO Max.
Looney Tunes cartoons, HBO Max. And that's the closest thing you've done to the original Looney Tunes, right?
I think so, yeah.
Wow.
And by the way, I did a series called Duck Dodgers where we had some episodes that were really close to Chuck Jones. And I've done some other things where the writing was like new Looney Tunes. I thought the writing was classic Looney Tunes, but the design was very contemporary. These, it's the writing, it's the character design, it's the music, full orchestras.
Wow.
These full orchestras. It just feels like you step back in time, and these could have been made in the 40s.
I'm really surprised that they would greenlight something, because it just seems like, yeah, I never see anything like this anymore. Like, I'm glad, but I'm really surprised.
It's Pete Browngardt, who's our showrunner, and Sam Register, who is the executive at Warner's, who said, "Yep, let's do this." And it is something that I wish they had done years ago. But look, it's expensive to do something like this. They're doing a lot with the characters right now, and we're doing some other things that aren't quite as ambitious. But there's a lot going on with these characters today, and 30-something years I've been doing these characters. I've had dry times because they're not doing anything, and I would say the last 10 to 15 years have been just back to back to back stuff.
Yeah, I think HBO Max is going to give you a lot of work for the years to come.
We're still working on it. I mean, we're working on it for years. We're still finishing them up. There's 200 of these shorts, and I think they've only aired 30 of them. So, wow. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, all the new ones. But talking about your kind of live action hybrid stuff, when working on a film like the original Space Jam or Looney Tunes Back in Action, does the process change at all when you know that your character is talking to a live action person like Brendan Fraser or Michael Jordan?
No. I'm in the studio recording a cartoon, and they're down the street in a soundstage shooting the live action. I never meet them. They never meet me. You would think it would make their job better if they had the voice actors on the stage to feed them the lines. I tried to do that for both of those films because I wanted extra money, but they didn't go for it. But no, the process is exactly the same. I'm playing the characters I'm playing, recording. And people may not know this, but you record the voices before they shoot, before they animate. If you saw Mrs. Doubtfire, where Robin Williams is doing all these characters back to back, watching the screen, it's not done that way. It's also not done in San Francisco. But no, the process is exactly the same.
Have you ever done that, like the way you kind of wanted to do, like be on set with the people? Have you ever done that?
I've never done it, but I've wanted to.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, I tried.
That's disappointing.
Tried with every single hybrid live action animation project I've ever done. And I actually, I want the extra days because you want the extra money. But I also really, as an artist, I want to be able to feed these live action actors the lines. And they I remember when they did Space Jam, they had things like a mop that Michael Jordan would be talking to, or a tennis ball. It's supposed to be Bugs Bunny walking by. And I'm like, I could be. They had Charles Fleischer do Roger Rabbit, dressed up as a rabbit for the live action actors to work off of. I wouldn't dress up like a pig, but I certainly would have been there if they asked me to.
Yeah, that would have been a really cool experience for you as an actor, I think.
Yeah.
And you could probably even try to do all of the characters just on set.
Sure.
And as a point for the characters to bounce off of. That would be really cool.
I know for Space Jam it was impossible because they were shooting the live action, at the exact same time we were recording it, so I couldn't have been in two places at one time.
Okay. That seems odd for, like you said, the voiceover usually is much earlier, but
it was tight. It was a tight schedule.
Wow. And for a big film like that, I'm surprised. But how often do you record in a group setting? Because like you said, right now you can't really do that. You're recording at your home. But and do you prefer to record solo or over a group, or which way do you prefer?
Yeah, it's a good question. I always prefer ensemble because acting is reacting. Even before COVID, if it's TV, episodic animation, they're going to have as many cast members as they can, as who are available in a session. But it's getting to the point where there's so much work and there's so much content, we're just double booked. So we can't always have everybody there. Um, I've done full episodes, before COVID, where I don't have the other scene partners there. It's just I'm Porky and Jeff Bergman's Bugs, and we're not together because he's busy doing something else. He was doing Donald Trump and his Showtime American President cartoon, and I'm doing Looney Tunes, and we're busy people. Um, COVID's been interesting. First of all, we never worked from home, so I had to upgrade. In fact, I can show you if you're interested. See if I can.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's my studio right there. That booth. That's a
Cool.
little like 3.5 by 3.5 box that I spend my entire day in, and that's where I record. I've recorded everything this year. It's been a busy year. I've been recording everything. I'm being directed by Zoom for some shows. Some shows it's called Source Connect. Some shows they have the entire cast on Zoom, so we can work off of each other. More often than not, I'm just recording solo. I much prefer having the actors to work off of. But when you do an animated feature, at least every time I've done an animated feature, it's me. When I did Emperor's New Groove, uh, uh, Patrick Warburton played Kronk. We had great on-screen chemistry. He and I've never been on the stage in our lives together. Even on the series, we weren't together. I met him for the first time at the Annie Awards a few years ago. We were presenting together, and he didn't know. He thought Bucky was a sound effect. He didn't know Bucky was a person.
Oh my.
I know. I did remind him that I'm in the credits, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's insane to me. Just it's so compatible, you guys. And oh shoot. Hopefully you can still hear me. I'm like kind of lagging right now, but yeah, it's really cool how you guys never even met,
Nope.
and you guys have that really great connection.
Yep.
Uh, Talking about your kind of sound booth in your house, how has that kind of evolved during COVID? Because was it as like advanced, and did it have as much great technology as it did before COVID, or did you really have to invest in your sound booth?
So I've always had a soundproof sound booth. I've got real tall ceilings. I got wall-to-wall glass windows everywhere. So I needed something soundproof, and I only used it for auditioning. When I first got in the business, we would go to the auditions, either the studio, the network, animation company, and then very, very, very early on in my career, agents started building studios in their offices, and we would go to our agent's office to audition. And then about 15, 20 years ago, actors started auditioning from home because it saved time and travel and whatnot. So I just knew I needed to get a booth that was really good quality. So I purchased this booth from a friend of mine who was moving and wanted to unload a booth. And it was a great booth. COVID hits, and I had to spend about $2,000 to upgrade it from audition quality to broadcast quality. I had to learn an awful lot of technology because I'm not very technical and I don't like it. I'm an actor, not a producer, but you have to be a self-producer. I had to learn tons of different programs because every show is different. I had to learn a lot. So it was more of a learning curve for me than it was a financial hardship. But look, I considered myself extremely fortunate because I have friends who worked on Broadway in New York, and if they could keep working by spending what I spent, they would have done it. TV shut down, film shut down, voiceover kept going. I was very lucky. And during this year of COVID, it's been an incredibly busy year. But it's a blessing and a curse. I miss people. I miss going places. On the other hand, I could be folding laundry, and all of a sudden I get a text from my agent. Hey, are you free to do a so and so session in about an hour? I certainly am. I just walk into my booth, push a button, and go. It's convenient, but I miss my peeps.
Yeah, like you said, a blessing and a curse. since you have the ability to continue and you really weren't hampered too much by it, it's kind of scary to see if they will like want you to go back to the studio to that ensemble because
Well, I think I mean some of the studios have opened up a little bit, and they
okay,
do have SAG-AFTRA safety guidelines. I just have chosen not to. And yeah, someday this will all be behind us. We won't wear masks. We'll all be back to normal. I don't know when that's going to be, but look, I'm fortunate. I within 10 days I was up and running, so I can't complain.
yeah, hopefully it doesn't like once everything's over, you have the ability and they'll not really they'll want you to go back with everyone. Like you said, they're already kind of giving the option to, but hopefully they really push that when everything's like calmed over and it doesn't really become commonplace that people are recording like broadcast quality stuff in
But
their
on
house.
the other hand, they've got the option to now. So
100%, yeah.
if they need me for a quick pickup, or it's a callback and they don't really want to invest in booking a studio, and they know they've got all the casting directors now have a list of every actor's home studio, their microphones, their recording programs, etc., and they know who to turn to if they need them in a pinch.
So that helps you out as well. It's
Sure.
just a bit more convenient, I
Yeah.
guess.
Sure.
That's awesome. Uh, so back on the live action kind of side, with the roles that you've had on the two previous films, like Back in Action and Space Jam,
Mhm.
did you work closely with the directors, or was it mostly the animation directors that you worked with?
So for Space Jam, Ivan Reitman, who was one of the producers, he was the voice director. So he was
Okay,
on this, but we also had a couple of the animation producers, Jerry Reese and Steve Leva, who were there at every session. For Back in Action, I think it was Joe Dante
yeah, he was the director.
and Eric Goldberg. I remember being on the stage, and we recorded that at Disney, oddly enough. Um, and I think that's about it. You never know. You never know who you're going to work with. Um, we have some amazing animation voice directors like Christy Reed, Colette Sunderman, Maria Estrada, Charlie Adler, who, when I see them at a session, it's a joy because they speak voice actor. Not every director does. Um, but I don't care. To be honest with you, I'm happy to be there. My job is to give them what they want. If a director doesn't quite speak voice actor that well, it's not my job to say that's not how it's done. I will do exactly what they're trying to get me to do, and then I'll say, "Hey, can I try one just for me?" And whether they keep it or not, I don't know. But that's how I kind of sneak in what I think would work better for this without insulting their position.
Yeah, that's really awesome because Joe Dante's known for his like puppeteering, kind of not truly live action, kind of blending two time forms of like film. So that's cool
Mm-hmm.
that he worked with you on the soundstage, uh, like as a director. The man who directed Space Jam, it sounds like he wasn't on the soundstage, but
Yeah, that was Joe Pitka.
Joe Pitka.
Yeah, I met him at the premiere. I had heard he was kind of a tough guy to work with, um, but he's very easy to notice because he's a tall guy with long, like platinum blondish grayish hair. And I saw him. I went up to him and I just like, Mr. Pitka, I just wanted to introduce myself. We never got to meet, but I played Porky, Tweety, and Marvin the Martian in the movie. And he says to me, "So what do you want, a medal?" I went, "Okay then, have a nice night." So yeah, you can't please everybody.
That's very strange, but what are you gonna
I heard
do?
what I understood, he was known for being one of the top commercial directors in the industry. I mean, an award-winning commercial director. The man, his work is stellar. But I'd heard from everybody he was kind of difficult.
And yeah, I don't know any other films from him other than Space Jam,
I don't
so
either.
that might be why.
Not a clue. Not a clue.
But yeah, that was. I've never truly seen Space Jam. I've seen it off and on TV, and I just really love it because it's just this odd combination of all sorts of things. So
Well,
I just have.
I will tell you that it was re-released, I think, for the 20th anniversary a few years ago, and I went to the theater to see it with Dee Baker, who was Daffy in the film, and Jocelyn Blue, who played one of the Nerdlucks. And I think that was the first time I had seen it since it wasn't originally released. So it was kind of surreal because I'm hearing lines and I'm thinking I have no recollection of ever saying that, but I know that's my voice up there because I can hear me. And people have to understand that when you record a cartoon, it's maybe 2 to 5 years before it's released. It's like any movie. It's recorded out of sequence, and you don't see any of the script that you're not in. So I didn't know what the story was. I didn't know anything other than the lines I recorded. And you record something, and it's a moment in your life. So if you're a school teacher, do you remember the day you graded that paper? You probably don't, but you did do it because your red pencils on the page. So I don't remember a lot of the stuff I do, and I don't watch a lot of the stuff I do because I just don't like watching my work.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well because with the short films that I've made, I edit them. It's torture for me to watch it after it's all done. You've seen it and you've worked on it. You just want it out there. With your voice acting stuff on like Looney Tunes and with Porky Pig, you've said the past 10 minutes that you have like he has different voices throughout the different cartoons, but how has that voice kind of evolved from when you first started doing it like for a paid gig till today in like the new Looney Tunes movie? How is that voice, has it changed at all, or have you tried to be consistent with that voice?
Well, it's when I first started doing him, they would play me a Mel Blanc reference for the first 12 minutes. And the reference was a compilation of stuff he'd done from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And I would say to them, "Well, which one do you want?" And they would look at me like I was speaking a foreign language. I'm like, "Look, the character evolved." And every director, from Friz Freleng to Tex Avery to Bob Clampett to Chuck Jones, they all had their own version of all the characters, from the visual to the personality. So it's collaborative. If somebody says to me, "Just do the Porky that you want to do for this," well, first of all, it depends on the writing. If they're like the Looney Tunes cartoons, I can't do a Chuck Jones, Duck Dodgers type of Porky with the kind of comedy they're writing for this because that's not the character they're writing. So it starts with the page.
Okay.
But if I have a choice, if I, like for instance, if I'm at a Comic Con and someone says, "I'm going to ask you a question, can you answer like Porky?" My sweet spot for Porky is about 1953 to 1956. It is the Chuck Jones, Drip Along Daffy, Robin Hood Daffy. Porky's the sidekick.
They're sometimes the innocent, Will Sylvester, and they're looking at a very scary house, and Sylvester, the scaredy cat, and like, come on, Sylvester, don't be such a scary cat.
Where That's where I think the Porky and Mel Blanc found his sweet spot. So if I don't get any direction, any script, that's where my mind goes. But if they want me to play him a little bit differently, if it's a director who says, "No, we want to do a little bit more Bob Clampett like the Looney Tunes cartoons on HBO Max," I go with the flow.
Awesome. And like you talked about previously with those live action movies, when you get the script, how is that? Do you even get a script or you just get your lines?
I don't even see anything until I get to the studio.
Okay.
I don't even get to prepare. It's a cold read.
All the time. Like,
Well, with the exception of what I'm doing at home, because
okay.
I have the time to look at it before I walk into my booth. But when I have to go to a studio, yeah, I in my career, I've never seen the full script of anything I've done. If it's a movie, if it's a TV show, they absolutely send me the script before we go to the session and the storyboard, so I can actually see the characters, the drawings of the characters in each scene, and make some actors' choices. That doesn't mean they're going to keep them. In fact, you get to the session and they've rewritten it since they sent it to you the night before, which is why you should never memorize if you're doing voiceover, because they're going to change stuff.
Awesome. So when you get in the studio, do you have like a ritual like that you always do? Do you have water with you, or?
They got water there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no. It's much more casual for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I like cold water out of the fridge. I like a pencil. I like to work holding a pencil, and I realized that when I started working in my home studio. There's something about holding a pencil that makes me feel like I'm prepared, because I know I'm going to get notes after a line. They're going to adjust something. They're going to redirect, so I just want to have it ready to go. But I can tell you what my ritual is in my home studio every day.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm an early riser. I've got an agent in Los Angeles and an agent in New York. Same agency, but they're bi-coastal. So my New York agent, if I have auditions, they need them in by 9 o'clock New York time, which is 6 o'clock LA time. So I'm usually up by 5. My coffee maker's on timer, goes off at 5. I pour a cup of coffee, I come into my studio, I turn on my computer, I look at the first script I have to do, I print it up, I pull up a recording program, I push record, I go into my booth and I start. And I don't really spend time looking at the copy and making choices. I record everything from my very first rehearsal, which sometimes that's the take I use, to, oh no, this needs more work. I come back out and I listen, oh, I can do that better, whatever. You self-direct when you're listening back, not while you're acting. And then I got to be done by 9 o'clock, because if I have a session, it'll probably be at 9, and I got to be ready for that. So I've got an iPad in my booth where I connect on Zoom so I can see everybody, they can see me, and I just start recording. And depending on the day, it might be it. I might do laundry. It's usually not it. I usually have stuff throughout the day. Auditions come in very last minute. Jobs come in very last minute. I coach. So somebody says, hey, I've got an audition. Can you coach me on this? Yeah, I have an hour, 2 to 3. So it's full day. I'm usually in this room where we are right now till about 6 o'clock at night.
Is that pencil used for anything, or do you just hold it as like a comfort?
Yeah, I'll use it to take notes. If they give me some direction, but it's almost like a security blanket. And I realized I did that when I started working from home. And thinking back, working at the Disney Studiopolis, various studios I've worked at, I realized, oh yeah, I have to have a pencil.
Is there one studio that you go to that you prefer? Like, is there one at Disney or Warner Brothers?
Question. That's a really good question. So Doc Kane at Disney, Stage B. That's my favorite stage to work at. It was built, I believe, for either Pinocchio or Fantasia. I forget which.
It's that old. Wow.
Yeah. And Doc has been there forever. He is the best mixer in the business. He knows us really well. Those of us who've worked with him over the years, he knows what mic is best for our voice. It's just, you don't take it for granted that you're working on that stage at Disney where they did Cinderella and Jungle Book and all the classic Disney films, 101 Dalmatians, oh my gosh, Mary Poppins. That's a great stage. Oh man. Studiopolis is great. There's 2. There's one in Burbank and there's one in Studio City. They're both great. I love LA Studios, where we do a lot of, we did some of Space Jam in LA Studios. I don't work very often on the main lots. Like, I don't work very often at Warner Brothers proper. They have a ranch down the street from the big studio where the animation studio used to be, where they have one recording studio where we did most of the new Looney Tunes. But because they've got so much product going on at one time, they have to kind of farm it out to other places. I like them all. They're all good.
They better treat the voice actors well, because
they do. I mean, listen, what we're doing, it beats working for a living. I'm telling you, everybody loves what they do. The engineers are terrific. I've worked with so many engineers over the years. Again, they know my voice. They know, some of them will know to put ice cold water out for me, because they know I like it cold. And then most of them will just be, what do you want? Or, and also, I'm not the kind of person that says, can you bring me? I like to get it myself. But yeah, it's a very casual environment. It's a very fun environment.
You still have some humility, Bob, I guess.
I think all
You're
of
not
us,
a diva yet.
it's really rare to find, can I swear a little bit on your show?
I know, you're fine.
You don't find a lot of assholes in voiceover, especially cartoons. Maybe one or two over the years, but karma catches up with you. It's the type of business where you'll get a phone call from somebody. Hey, I just read for this so and so part. You're perfect for it. Call your agent if you haven't read for it. We do that to each other all the time.
That's awesome. And how long are your average recording sessions? Is it, you said before, like 8 hours? Is that
Well,
about?
if it's a TV episode, they have you, as per the contract, up to 4 hours. It doesn't take 4
Okay.
hours. I would say the longest, especially recording by myself. Oh golly! I just did a session the other day where I sent in the file to the studio, and it was a 6-minute file for some episode, which you get the same amount of money for 6 minutes as you would for 4 hours. For a feature, it's up to 8 hours, depending on what I'm doing on it. It might be a full 8-hour day, or it might just be a 2-hour day if I'm just doing my own stuff solo. But you know not to book yourself before that 4 or 8 hour contractual obligation is over, because you get in trouble. But that's why we have agents to do all that stuff.
And they help you out a lot, right? With
Oh
your
yeah,
personal schedule.
I don't schedule my own stuff. If somebody wants, I will get all the time. Hey, we'd love to. Would you be interested in doing so and so? Yes, I would, but please call my agent, because I don't know how to negotiate my own deals. I don't want to schedule something where my agent might be working on something but hasn't called me about it yet because it hasn't completely come to fruition. So it just would make it a logistical nightmare if I took my own bookings.
Yeah, it's nice that you hear that you don't too, because in my mind, if you did, you might overschedule, have to phone in some stuff. And I want to hear that from you, Bob, phoning in any of your very interesting rules, like all that you all have. So
Well, and also
it's nice to hear.
the thing is, if you're fortunate enough to be that busy, well, that's why agents get 10%. Now I've got some friends who they do like podcasts like this all the time, but they don't want to be contacted directly. You have to go through their agent. To me, that's a little silly. So if it's not like a voiceover gig, I'm more than happy to talk to people who want to do this sort of thing, because I want to schedule it around like the weekends. This is perfect. You and I were talking about when can we do this? What time is good? What day is good? I don't want to bother my agent because I don't get paid for it. So they're not getting 10%. So why should they take the time to do that on my behalf?
Thank you for that ability to kind of portion out your free time, and that's really awesome to see from someone in your position. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And one of my other questions is, the industries kind of shift away from the 2D animation style that you grew up with, that was everywhere at that time. Does that disappoint you at all as a fan of animation?
Yes, it does very much. One of the things I love about Looney Tunes cartoons is it looks like a 2D 1940s cartoon. I get a little bit, I don't know if bored is the right word, but I think the studios are doing all the CGI stuff because they think the kids are so accustomed to it that they don't think the other stuff looks as good on the big screen. It's all about writing. If the characters are there, if the script is there, then it doesn't matter how it's made. But there's a rawness to the 2D animation that I think it gets homogenized if you have too much 3D CGI, shadowing, whatever. I'm not against it by any means. I mean, Pixar's done some brilliant stuff. I remember when we worked on A Bug's Life, I think that was my first Pixar movie, looking at grass, that they animated grass and it looked so real. And then when we did Finding Nemo and I saw the underwater stuff, I'm like, holy cow, this is unbelievable. But both of those movies had brilliant scripts and brilliant characters. It wasn't just a technical wonder. It came with the full package. If the words aren't on the page, if the story is not there, it doesn't matter how it's made.
exactly. And yeah, and just in my mind, it's just seeing how Disney is, even their Disney proper, not even like Pixar. That's they've always been doing it this way, but Disney proper, how they've kind of shifted to a more entirely, basically, CG workflow is
Well,
to me is disappointing.
I remember years ago when John Lasseter was still at Pixar. I remember saying to him over lunch, "Would you guys ever do a 2D uh, film?" And he goes, "We're not opposed to it at all. It's just
Wow.
this is where we started. This is what we do. But yeah, absolutely, we would consider doing a 2D cartoon." That was years ago, and they haven't done it yet, I don't think.
No.
But yeah, I think people just want to do fun stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting for me to even ever hear that because that's really cool. Because for me, Pixar is that one style. I know they've done slight iterations of
Mm-hmm.
their base thing, but seeing a 2D Pixar film would be very cool. And
I agree.
it's yeah. Go ahead.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and it's a very I've love how Warner Brothers like sees that people still want that because it's very limited to see how we see the Looney Tunes in like a CG setting. Like they're
Well, well. I'm not. I mean, Space Jam was completely
yeah.
CG.
Well, there's a small section, at least in the trailers so far.
Well, are you talking about Space Jam 2?
Oh,
So
yeah,
Space Jam 2, I've seen the trailer.
yeah,
So they do both styles. So that's kind of cool. For
yeah.
you have people a taste of both. The original Space Jam, it was all CG.
Okay, yeah. Well, I eh, yeah, I guess it's tough for them to see what people want nowadays, but until you give it to them, that's how you know people want something and
Right.
what performs. Do you think like the stigma between voice actors and actual actors has that shifted in the past like 20 years
Well, when you
since
say actual actors, you mean on camera?
well from
Because
what people
we
say
are actual
actual actors
actors.
but yeah but that's the stigma though that
Eh, it's not a stigma I have, but I mean, I've had situations where I do a lot of fan conventions when we're not under a pandemic, where people have said, "Have you ever wanted to act?" And I'm like, "God, I thought I was," or "Have you ever wanted to do real acting?" God, I thought I was. But I've had family members at weddings and bar mitzvahs. Are you still just doing those voices? I'm like, yeah, but you see, that was my choice. I'm doing what I wanted to do. Um, I don't think that there's a stigma, and if there is, I don't care.
okay
I think if people invest in caring about what other people think, then what a waste of time that's going to be. I know there's a lot of people in my circle that kind of resent celebrities playing the leads in a lot of these films, but sometimes you got to it's a business. It's called show business. You got to take off your actor hat, put on your executive hat, and go, what's going to bring in box office? When we did the original Space Jam, at one of the callbacks, I was told that they were thinking of offering Jack Lemmon Porky Pig because he really stuttered. And I said, how do you change a classic character like that? And the casting director said, well, lots of people have played James Bond. And I'm like, okay, I got nothing. But it's a business, and a lot of these choices are out of our hands. But your goal is to make money. Number one, if you're an executive at a studio, your goal is to make money. Pixar's done it well. Tom Hanks, Ellen DeGeneres, Albert Brooks. They have always cast really great actors that make really good characters. The actor doesn't go in and say, what funny voice am I going to do? The actor is the perfect marriage between the character, the character and the actor. When they were, I've told the story before, but I'll tell you too. When they were figuring out if Tom Hanks should be Woody in Toy Story, they took a scene from Turner and Hooch, where the dog Hooch had locked himself in the car and he was chewing up the upholstery. And Tom Hanks is outside the window screaming at him, "Don't eat the car, not the car!" And they animated Woody saying that line from that movie. And they went, yep, that's him. That is him. So You got celebrity that's box office appeal. You've got a celebrity whose natural personality matches the character. I get it. I totally understand that business decision. Would I like to play a lead in an animated feature? Of course I would. Am I gonna? Probably not, but that's okay. I don't mind playing the sidekick or the squirrel or whatever else they give me because I'm doing what I love and I get really good residuals.
Yeah, and I to me, there's not really a stigma, but to some people, like how your family might say, "Are you acting yet?" Like that's what I mean by it. So
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. I get it. I've never invested in what other people think. You know, the internet didn't exist when I first started uh, doing this, and then people would pop me notes. Did you see what so and so said about the so and so that you did? I'm like, no, you know. And at first, I'll be curious to go what they say, and they're like, you know, well, he sucked at this, and he's not as good as that, and I'm like, well, I don't care. I don't care. They're entitled to their opinion. And then I see other actors start to, you know, chime in and argue. I'm like, why are you wasting your time arguing? They're allowed to think what they think. Ignore it. If you let it go and ignore it, you're not going to be upset. So I studied with some amazing people over the years, and some of the nuggets. I don't remember who said it, but don't let the good reviews go to your head. Don't let the bad reviews go to your heart. You can't care what people think. So just have fun with the job. Just have fun with the tunes.
just have fun.
Yeah.
And like throughout your career, you've been doing Porky for so long. When was the first time you voiced Porky?
Tiny Toon Adventures, March 1990.
1990. So for over 30 years at this point, you've had this role as Perky.
Well, I'm
But
not the only one. There have been other people
yeah,
who've done
in,
it.
in
I think I've
between.
done it probably 98% of the time.
So the most of the time, but you've been playing off other characters who's had the other Looney Tunes roles like Bugs, but that's Bugs has been played by multiple people in that 30 years.
Yeah.
So how does that go for you having to play off of different people? Does that change how you portray Porky at all after having all these
It's a
different
really good
people?
question because I've done, I did, let's see, early on, it was Jeff Bergman on Tiny Toons doing Bugs and Daffy, and I was doing Porky and Tweety. And then I remember when we did Duck Dodgers. I was doing it with Joe Alasky. He was Daffy. The new Looney Tunes show. Jeff Bergman was back. Eric Bowes is now doing Daffy to my Porky. On acting is reacting. So it doesn't change anything that I'm doing or choosing to do, but it might change the way our chemistry is. I'll give you an example. Joe Alasky, I said this at his memorial. We were like Fred and Ginger. That show, Duck Dodgers, was pure joy because we knew these characters, we knew this genre of these characters, we knew the comedy so well, and there were some times where he was being given direction that he wasn't quite grasping, and he was getting a little agitated, and I would be like, Joe, less Chuck Jones, more Friz Freeland. Oh, okay, okay. And because we were both fanboys as well as voices. Jeff Bergman probably knows these characters as well or better than I do. He knows subtleties. There are subtleties in these characters that sometimes were directed. I call it the Saturday morning direction. It's just in your face, boom, 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 and a really good Looney Tunes director. Jack Fletcher is directing us in Looney Tunes cartoons, and the man's a genius because he there's a rhythm, there's a song, there's a pattern, and there's a subtlety, and he trusts us as artists, and he also knows how to direct in a way that we connect immediately. Um, uh, you know, he might say, you know, more serendipitous. You know, that's a fun word. Okay, but he does it in a way where he performs it. He's a perfect Looney Tunes director, the perfect Looney Tunes director. But going back to your original question, forgive me for talking too much. It is different working with every actor, but every actor is bringing their flavor, their touch to the character, in the same way that every director does. If you watch the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show as a kid, on Saturday mornings, yeah, that first cartoon was directed by Friz Freleng. The next one was Chuck Jones. The next one was Bob McKimson. You never went, why are they changing a little bit from cartoon to cartoon? You just grew up with them and you accepted it. But today, everybody scrutinizes. Why is new Looney Tunes different from Looney Tunes cartoons? Why is Looney Tunes cartoons different from Space Jam? Why? And everybody has an opinion, but they didn't scrutinize the original because they didn't have the internet to do it. But they also, I've often asked our creatives, do you think in the playground in 1945 or 1950, when they went from Crazy Daffy to Greedy Daffy, did they talk about it? Or did they just go, yeah, it was a new Daffy Duck cartoon? I don't know. I don't know.
I think some kids did.
Perhaps.
Definitely. I think you would have picked up on it. How?
Oh, me? Absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Is there one animated show that you would like to see brought back? Because recently, for some reason, I'm a big fan of Animaniacs, and they brought that back that was on Hulu for some weird reason.
Right.
But yeah, they brought that back after like 20 years probably. But is there one that you have a connection to that you would like to see on one of these streaming services?
Wouldn't mind if they brought back Duck Dodgers. That has a special place. Spike Brandt and Tony Cervoni. It was, and Colette Sunderman directing. It was just a real kind of a special show. Duck Dodgers, I'll tell you, it actually started out as a feature. Oh. Right after we did Space Jam, they had me record Dodgers and Marvin. I don't think Porky was in it, as a mock trailer, trying to sell it as an animated feature. And it didn't sell as an animated feature, but Cartoon Network bought it as a series. I would love to see them bring that back. That was a fun one. That was a joy.
I have to catch up on my Duck Dodgers because I'm not too familiar with the property. But when did that release?
There was an old classic 1950s Looney Tunes, Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century, and they just kind of made a series about it based on it.
Cool. And after being the host of Jep, are you interested in throwing your hat in the ring for the Jeopardy job? And if not, who would you like to see take the mantle from?
Goodness, I get asked this now all the time. First of all, they wouldn't want me. I can tell you right now that I don't think they would be. Chances are, during this whole process, my name might have come up at the coffee machine, but because a lot of the same writers, but in jest probably more than seriousness, because what I did for the kids version ain't this version. But if they asked me, I'm not sure what my answer would be. Because in my heart, I don't think I'm right for it. So I wouldn't want to put myself in a situation where I'm like, this isn't for me. But then there's the part of me that likes the challenge, so I don't know. I thought Ken Jennings did an exceptional job, and I didn't want to like him. I didn't want to like him. I didn't expect to like him. He was charming. He was smart. He was engaging. It seemed effortless to him. So far, of everybody I've seen, and I do DVR it every night, and I'm about 5 behind. So I think they've got somebody since Dr. Oz. I'm not
Aaron
sure.
Rodgers, right?
There we go. I heard he did pretty well. That's what I heard. He did pretty well.
I'm not the biggest fan of him. It's probably my least favorite of all the guests, but
there you go. I mean, I can tell you right now that hang on 1 second. I want to silence that. In the lineup I've seen, or even before, I thought that Tom Bergeron would be a great choice. I don't think he's in play. I think Anderson Cooper's coming up. I like Anderson Cooper, but boy, Ken Jennings, and he was the first. He blew me away.
They're very good. Yeah, I agree. And for some reason, he beat James Holzhauer, so I don't like him. But I thought he did very well as well.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, James he just seems like a funny guy, so I like him. But what are you working on now? I know you can't talk about anything too specific, but
I can talk about some stuff. We're still working on Looney Tunes cartoons. We're finishing up those. I will be starting a new Looney Tunes series in June. I am doing a show for Netflix called Ridley Jones. It's a really well written, amazingly written show, written and produced by Chris Nee, who did Doc McStuffins and Vampirina.
And I play a character named Mr. Peabody who owns a museum.
I'm doing that other thing that I can't talk about, but it's pretty darn bitchin'.
Awesome.
I'm doing a new series for DreamWorks, and I don't think I can mention the title right now or what it is.
No problem.
I'm going through the things I can and can't talk.
You're a busy guy.
A busy guy, yeah.
That's great. Great to be.
Yeah.
You're wanted. And yeah, I'm looking forward to all the stuff you have next. And my final question that I have for you,
Yes.
Mr. Bergen,
Yes.
is what advice would you give to anyone who's currently looking to be an aspiring voice actor? How could they improve their craft, and how could they possibly get their first gig?
Are you talking specifically for cartoons?
Anything, anyone to get the foot in the door.
Okay.
And like maybe someone in your position, like
Okay.
you did
Okay.
some like revoicing, but you wanted to be Porky, so
Right. Well, that was pretty specific. I don't recommend people say, when I grow up, I want to be Popeye. I mean, the odds were really against me. What I realized is I had to be in the business, represented by a top agent, to even be able to audition for the character when or if it happened. So it's called voice acting for a reason. They're looking for actors. So don't spend money on a voiceover class until you've honed your acting and your improv skills. Become the best actor you can possibly be, and then study voiceover. You don't take 1 or 2 classes and say, I'm ready for a demo. You don't take 1 or 2 classes in medical school and say, I'm ready to operate. You study until you know that you are an exceptional actor. Let's talk about animation. Nobody wants a Fred Flintstone. Nobody needs a Homer Simpson. They need original characters that they don't already have. So go to the websites of the top voiceover agents: Atlas Talent, CESD, SBV, DPN, AVO, A3, Dean Panero Voices. Listen to all the demos on that agent's website. All the character demos. Hear all those characters? That's what they don't need. When you're demo ready, and you'll know when you're demo ready, you want characters that are original. You don't want characters that reflect animation from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. You want characters that reflect animation today, which means, what does PBS Kids look for at 8 a.m. versus Sprout versus Nick Jr.? What are the cartoons like on Cartoon Network between 3 and 6 in the afternoon versus Adult Swim? How are Adult Swim different from Fox Primetime? How is Fox Primetime different from FX and Archer? You need to be relevant. You need to be knowledgeable about the animation landscape. You need to know the players. So, I'm dying to work on OKKO on Cartoon Network. Great, go to IMDb. Look up the players. Oh, that's Christy Reed. Let's see, look at the actors on it. Oh, look at those actors. Who's their agent? Oh, they're with SBV. Who's their agent? Oh, they're with CESD. Who's their agent? Oh, they're with Atlas. You could be researching your career before you're ever ready to make that demo, learning the business of the business. Strive to be a great actor, not a working actor, because those who are great have a better chance of working. If you want to work in animation, you got to live in LA, but you can do voiceover anywhere. But you've got to want this more than anything else. You've got to go to whatever your booth is. Sometimes it's your closet, and being in front of a mic should be your happy place. If you can be happy in front of your microphone without getting paid, you're doing the right thing. If it's a chore, find something in life that makes you as happy as I find voiceover. I'm fortunate that I get paid in it, but I never got into this for the money. In fact, you were asking me about my first job. After I did it, like 6 weeks later, I was still living with my parents, and I went to get the mail, and somebody sent me a check. I'm like, who would be sending me? Oh, they pay you for this. They totally pay you for this. I had forgotten. I totally forgot that I got paid for that first job. If there's anything in life that you do for free, do it. I don't want to say this loudly because I do have a mortgage to pay, but I would do this for free.
Thank you so much. And also read that newspaper. I heard you say it before, but if you could read the cover of a newspaper in a character's voice,
yeah,
that's a very good sign that you're ready to take
page
a step.
of the front page of the New York Times. You created a character. If you can read the front page of the New York Times and the story comes through, it doesn't sound like you're struggling to get the story out, then you probably know that character.
That seems like a great tactic to learn the character. Thank you so much, Mr. Bergen, for your time and enlightening me on your profession, your passion. And is there anywhere we can find you to follow your escapades and your adventures?
Instagram, bergen.bob, Twitter @Bob Bergen. I'm on Facebook. I'm easy to find. We're all easy to find. Voice, I used to stalk people on the telephone when I was a kid. Today, you can find everybody all over the place. And the voiceover community is nice. You'll get a response, I can guarantee it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bergen. I'm excited to see Space Jam 2 when it releases. So, and I'll hear you there. So,
well, you might not. You never know. Who knows? We don't know.
I think I heard Porky in the trailer.
I don't think you did.
No, that's crazy. Okay, I'm just imagining stuff.
Anything, but you might have heard Tweety.
Are you Tweety in Space Jam 2?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll see when it releases. Thank you so much, Mr. Bergen. Sure. And that's it. That's all, folks.
That's